Good morning. If you have questions regarding solar in today's video, I'm going to try to answer some of the most common questions that I get as an RV tech that installs custom solar systems. So stick around. We're going to answer some of your questions in today's video. Hey, what's up everybody? How you doing? It's me, Robert Anthony, coming to you from Elkhart, Indiana, the RV capital of the world. We are getting ready to begin our trek down to Florida now that I'm done with some schooling at the RV Technical Institute, or the training academy here in town. And I'm just thrilled to have been a part of that. But today I wanted to cut a video, got some beautiful weather. It's a perfect day to talk about solar. And I want to address some of the questions that some of you have as it relates to solar. So I'm going to kind of go down that list here just to help maybe to give you a more informed opinion of solar, how it can benefit you, and whether or not it's the right thing for you. That is what we'll talk about. One of the most common questions that I get through our Facebook advertising and through form submissions on my website is, how much is a solar system going to cost? A lot. That's the answer. A solar system that is going to function your rig, if you hope to live in a boondocking state totally off-grid, it's going to cost you a lot of money. How much is a lot of money, Rob the RV guy? That's probably what you're thinking. Well, you know, a base system installation of a few panels and a battery, maybe a couple of batteries, small batteries, you're going to be looking at a $3,000 mark. But anything that's going to get you totally off grid, like me, like what I have on the Bigfoot here, you're going to be in for $15,000 to $25,000. Smaller rigs, $15,000 to $17,000. Larger rigs, $25,000 to $30,000. $25,000 to $30,000 is going to be a 50 amp rig that's going to be running as if it's on 50 amps, multiple thousands of watts of solar, and you're going to be the Mac Daddy king of solar. But those are some price variables there that can kind of get you in the market, because I know if you're looking around and you're trying to shop around, it's almost elusive. You know, you want to know how much it's going to cost and nobody wants to tell you. Well, you know, Rob the RV guy, I want you to know right out of the gate, so we're not wasting each other's time if that's outside of your spectrum of cost. So that's the answer on that. Jesus Freak Jen had reached out to me some time ago, and I'm just now getting to answer that because life has been so chaotic over the last year or 14 months. What I thought about the solar that's coming out on a lot of the rigs. Now, as far as factory solar installs go, some of your higher end rigs are putting solar in and marketing these to folks that want a boondocking camper. I'm not, and haven't been yet, impressed with what they're putting on these rigs. You may recall, if you've been following me for a long time, that I had a Winnebago Flex, for example, a short camper that they were marketing as an off-grid rig. And this is a good example of what I'm talking about. That RV came stock from the factory with a Xantrex inverter, not a bad inverter, but not great, a Lithionics battery, top shelf, very expensive battery, good call on that, and two 200 watt solar panels, so 400 watts of solar. And it was marketed as an off-grid trailer. Now, I upgraded the solar on that to a total of 1,200 watts ultimately, but with the battery capacity of only 300 amp hours on 12 volt, I still could only go for 3 or 4 days before I would have to pull out my propane generator and recharge the batteries. Generally speaking, I can tell you that even if you're spending $150,000 or $200,000 on a rig and it's coming out ready for boondocking, more than likely it's not going to be. I'm not saying it won't be, but a lot of it's going to depend on your use, the battery capacity that they give to you, and so on. But in general, 1,000 watts of solar, which is what I see often, 800 to 1,000 watts of solar on a rig, a large rig, is just simply not enough to give you extended stays off grid like what I can do with my setup. So that's my thinking on factory installed solar. Not a bad thing, but I think you're much farther ahead to, if you're thinking that direction, not have the factory install it, because in my view you're probably overpaying for it, and instead plan to spend the money that you would give the factory to do that. This is no slight against the factories, by the way, but plan to have that where you have a professional like me do it. Perfect case in point, I recently worked on a customer's rig, and they had a factory installed solar system in their in their very expensive fifth wheel. And I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but they were having some serious issues. Their solar charge controllers kept dying. Well, I found that the large 12-volt battery that had been installed in that rig was wired to the inverter, and the washers on it were wired or were put on backwards so that they were underneath the battery lug. The battery lug is supposed to go straight to the metal of the inverter, so there was a huge gap between the washers, creating a constant arcing that was melted. It had melted the plastic around the housing and everything, and this was straight from the factory. So I think when you're talking about something as robust and complex as solar, putting that in the hands of just a tech on a line, not even a solar tech like what I am, on the line to install that rig, their rig was this close to being a thermal event. Let's just call it that. I would just say, if you're thinking that direction, maybe wait and hire an independent contractor coming out of the factory. If you plan to have enough solar that you're powering a lot of items and you're able to live off grid indefinitely. So the next question that I'll get asked a lot as it relates to that is, how much solar do I need? That's not an easy question to answer without doing an energy audit, I'll say that. But a simple answer to that is as much as you can possibly afford. You're never going to regret going more if you go more, and the time to do it is when you've actually built out the install. Because, you know, if you're hiring me to put in a $10,000 or $15,000 solar system, to add 4 or 5 more panels, if your rig will account for it, increasing that another $1,000, is going to save you significantly on labor should you decide later that that's not enough. Now, when you consult with us, what we're going to do is we're going to do our best to do an energy audit to try to figure out what you want to do, how long you want to be off grid, what you want to run while you're off grid, and how much solar and battery power you're going to need in order to do that. Now, I have, you may recall from this video here that we did over the summer this year, I have, with my roof array and my ground deployment, I have 2,350 watts on this Bigfoot, and that gives me, in good sun, 1,750 watts when the sun is right and the temperatures are good. So that's plenty more than enough to not only charge my batteries, which will only take 100 amps of charge or 1,200 watts of charge continuously anyway, it gives me another 500 or 600 to run everything in the rig. So I'm in great shape because I'm not running my air conditioner, which I have a 12-volt air conditioner now. I'm not running that a lot, but when I am, it can handle it. Now, there are a few of you, a significant number that I want to mention it here, that will say, will it run my air conditioner? Yes, if you have a fifth wheel and I've put 5,000 or 6,000 watts of solar on your RV, and we're running in particular a 48-volt system and all of your air conditioners have soft starts on them, it's absolutely going to run your air conditioning. But in my mind, if you're boondocking and you're living off grid, you should be following the weather. I would encourage people that are thinking about hiring us for a massive solar build to maybe not build it to run your air conditioners. Yes, if you need to. Occasionally, if you're wintering in Arizona, it gets up into the 80s and you want to run your air conditioner, a system that I install will be able to run your air conditioners for sure. But that's the beauty of living in an RV full time, is you follow the weather like what we do. So my thinking is if you need that air conditioning, you actually should just be in a park paying for electric hookup to run your air conditioning. Not that a good solar system can't, but that would be the direction that would make more sense to me financially, if that makes sense. So how much solar do you need? As much as you can afford. I've got a Bigfoot trailer here, you know, about a 25-foot trailer, and if I wanted to and I didn't care about covering up the rest of the back, I could have another 530 watts on the roof. So I could get up close to 3,000 watts total, but I wanted to keep the back of my roof line open for my Starlink, my cell antenna, and just to allow me to crawl up on the rig without having to take the back panel off to get up there and do service. And then the last question that I want to answer is, because a few people have mentioned this in comments, and I feel like they've been a little bit snarky. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but they've just been kind of rude about it. You know, why would I spend that much money on solar? Why couldn't I just buy a generator and do that? Well, you could. When I was going through RVTI, another mobile tech that's a full-timer was talking, as we were learning generators. We were learning owning generators and then some of the new inverter generators that go underneath the rig. And he said that he was going to have a 5,500 or 6,000 watt Onan put on their brand new Dakota fifth wheel when they bought it out of the factory. The factory wanted $12,500 to install that generator. Now, having gone through the RVTI training level 2, we spent a couple of days on generators, and holy cow, I've never owned one other than my portable. My rig is set up for a 2,500 watt Onan propane underneath it, but geez, oh Pete, do those things require maintenance? Oh my gosh. And if they need service, God have mercy on your pocketbook. Most of these generators that are in these rigs need special equipment to be able to pull them out if they need service. You're not going to be able to get many mobile guys to service your generator, and it's going to require going to a service center to get it done, which means you might not have your rig for a month. And you know, there's a lot of maintenance that you got to do on these generators, a ton. I was actually surprised at how much there is. So, you know, when you're talking about a 5,000 watt factory install or 6,000 watt factory install at $12,000, you could go $15,000 to $20,000 and have a solar system. And you know, honestly, once your solar system's in, it's a once and done. There's not all kinds of maintenance that needs to be done and hours that need to be tracked on generators and all that stuff. You're just done. You're just done. Generators are noisy. They are quiet. Some of, you know, we ran some and they're quieter than I thought, but they're still noisy. And for those of us that live in the wild, that go out full time in a boondocking sense, which is why we have solar, is to be able to power everything off grid. Nobody, and don't take this personally if you're that person, but nobody likes the guy that starts the generator to charge up his batteries or run his air conditioning all day out on BLM land in the mountains. Nobody likes that guy. Now, if it's a situation where it's been cloudy for a week and everybody starts firing up their generators to charge their batteries, everybody kind of understands that. But for those of us that live in the peace and solitude that solar brings to us out in the deserts of Utah, hearing those generators hum all day is the last thing that we want. Now, we can just move, but that is a drawback to a generator. It's always power all the time, yes, but they're not as cheap as what one might think. And especially if you start to get into those that are, you know, like the Harbor Freight Predators, where you're running a 5,000 or a 6,000 watt generator, you kind of pick up and you put it out. Those are noisy, and you're gonna bother everybody within hundreds of yards when it's out where it's real quiet. So I don't like that about generators. Now, I do have a suitcase style generator. I've got the Champion 2,500 watt dual fuel generator. Love that thing. It weighs 38 pounds. I can move it easily, and it works in a pinch. It runs on propane, and I have used that on occasion when we've been places where it's been cloudy for 4 or 5 days and I don't get any solar to charge my batteries. That's my thinking on generators. I hope that makes sense. The last question is 12 volt, 24 volt, or 48 volt? And I just want to address that right now. 12 volt systems are fine for smaller rigs, but I have finally made my mind up that if I'm going with the larger array, if I were to do mine over again, I totally would be switching to a 48 volt system. For those of you that are still installing 24 volts, or if you're in a market where you're going to do solar and they want to do 24 volts, I don't understand what your logic is here, because you can jump from 12 to 48. You're going to save money putting the 48 in. Your system is going to generate less heat, it's going to be less expensive to install, and it's going to be exponentially more powerful at 48 volts. So in my view, for any larger rigs that we install where we want to go robust, I want 12 volt to run the house, the DC side of the house, and I'm doing 48 volt with regard to the solar array, 48 volt on the charge controllers, and 48 volt with regard to the batteries that are being inverted to run the house, the house 110 or 220 side of that rig. 48 volt is the only way to go, in my opinion, for larger installs. There's just too much heat, there's too much resistance in a 12 volt system. You know, taking that voltage of 12 volts and sizing it up to 120, you're multiplying that 10 times, where with 48 volts, you're only multiplying it 2.5 times. So 48 volt is absolutely 100%, in my view, the future. That's the way to go. Absolutely. This middle ground thing with 24 volt, nope, not for me. It's either 12 or 48, and on my website you'll see the 12 volt options and the 48 volt options. I can address those more specifically later, but I believe that 48 volt is the future. That's the way to go. That's what I would do on any rig that I install that's a larger array, provided that's what the customer wants. Hey, if you have other questions for Rob the RV Guy, or you want to know more about solar, please leave those in the comment below. I am happy to be here. I'm happy to be making these videos, and I'm looking forward to getting back in the cycle and the routine of cutting videos that I hope help you guys out with regard to the decisions that you're making, with making RV life easier, and honestly, just helping you to learn. Learn a new thing. If you've learned a new thing today, give me a like or a thumbs up. I would love that. And if you need a solar system installed, I know a guy. It's me, Rob the RV Guy. Reach out to us. Joelle, my wife, will connect back with you, and we'll get you going as far as getting you in the pipeline and in the system to get you living off-grid in your boondocking dreams, seeing some of the places that I have been so privileged to stay at for extended stays out in the middle of the most beautiful parts of this great country that we have. I'm glad that you're here. And as we close out, this video is a video that YouTube thinks you want to see next. This playlist is all things RV stuff. And if you click the circle, you're subscribed. And I would love to have you on board as a subscriber, supporting me as I travel around the country as an RV technician. I'll see you in the next one. Rob out.